voices in your head saying that you're a failure. You're not good enough, but you know that's not true. There is a secret power hidden in your soul. Don't be afraid to use it, 'cause you're the one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the one. 'Cause you're the one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the chosen one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the one. You're the chosen one.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
Welcome back to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I will be Patrick Smith. Today, Larken has picked a fight with me. He thinks that we shouldn't have voted for Trump in the presidential election, and we're going to be debating the topic. I'm kidding. Oh, I can't even do it for 5 seconds. Okay. Hi, Larken. Welcome to the show.
Howdy. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so I'm going to devil's advocate starting right now. I'm going to play a video that Larken wanted to discuss, and then we're going to do this. Here we go. You ready?
Couldn't imagine Director of National Intelligence was going to be being better than Tulsi Gabbard, head of the FBI being better than Kash Patel, or the health secretary being better than Bobby Kennedy. You got Tulsi cheering on leveling an apartment building. Missile got back to his apartment building where his girlfriend lives. So we leveled the building, and she's sending like thumbs up emojis. I got every time I hear from Kash Patel lately, it's never about the criminals in government anymore. It was on a goddamn couldn't imagine Director of National Intelligence was going to be being better than Tulsi Gabbard, head of the FBI being better than Kash Patel, or the health secretary being better than Bobby Kennedy. You got Tulsi cheering on leveling an apartment building. Missile got back to his apartment building where his girlfriend lives. So we leveled the building, and she's sending like thumbs up emojis. I got every time I hear from Kash Patel lately, it's never about the criminals in government anymore. He was on a goddamn media tour for 2 years. Everything he ever said was that there's all these criminals in the FBI. Gotta get these people who committed all these heinous crimes against our republic. Not talking about that anymore today. Then Bobby Kennedy is out fighting the real health crisis, which is anti-Semitism. Looking around the administration at this point, I think we got the positives out of Donald Trump that we would get, but man, this all just points in such a bad direction. I knew I would be disappointed, but it is on the level of a Greek tragedy that these guys had this mandate and this opportunity, and they're just fucking it all up.
Okay, I'm turning this on. There we go. That way I can't be clipped out of context for the next hour.
They, Trump and his fellow freedom fighters and political saviors, they had this mandate. And they fucked it up, says Dave Smith, who is still talking as if Trump gives a shit about any of us or views any of us as anything other than livestock. And he didn't just say, oh, I didn't expect this. He literally used the term, I couldn't imagine this. Your imagination is shit if you couldn't imagine that giving somebody the ring of power would result in him using power in immoral ways, because that's the only way you can use government power. So, yeah, I'm slightly annoyed that people who claim the label libertarian or even anarchist made excuses for participating in a game that empowered a psychopath. And now they have the gall to turn around. Oh, wow, I'm disappointed. The people who got blown up are a little bit more than disappointed. They're dead. Part you helped to do. So being dead isn't enough. All you lovely libertarians who played the game and empowered a psychopath.
Look,
but,
the libertarians the libertarians that voted for Trump were under no illusions whatsoever that he was going to be a good guy, that he was going to be a true libertarian, that was going to fight for everything we believed in, that was going to destroy the state. No. And no one was saying that before they voted for him. What they were saying is what we did, which was nothing more than stating a preference between two terrible options. You had the outright, completely incompetent, wine mommy Kamala Harris that was going to do nothing but drive the world further into communism and just generally make the country a worse place. And you had Trump, which freed Ross, which has created the Department of Dodge with Elon Musk to reduce the size of government. You cannot say that we did not get at least most of, if not half of, the wins that we were looking for with our, dropping the slaves suggestion in the slave suggestion box. That's all we did. We didn't sign on. We didn't co-sign. We didn't endorse Donald Trump and everything he stands for. We didn't destroy the libertarians' name and credibility by trampling our... I'm not doing a good job at this right now.
Not really.
We
keep going.
Look, voting for Trump was not a statement that everything he does is right. And going forward, we're going to continue calling him out when he does wrong, when he kills children like he did very recently again after doing it 2,000 times in his life. I'm not doing it again. So look, that's my point. We had a choice between two terrible options. We live in the real world. We just chose the less suck of the two. And for our compromise, we got Ross Ulbricht is free. His mother has won her war against the state, and Ross is now free because of what we did. In large part, the libertarians that did vote for Trump played a large role in freeing Ross. We've done good by endorsing Trump, at least in this election.
Now, when lots of normal people make that argument, I have some sympathy for them. If they think we had a choice between A and B, and they chose B because they thought it was better than A. Libertarians should know better. There wasn't a choice. And this is whether you look at it along the timeline or at any time. There was not a choice. We got Trump. And then we also got Biden. And then we also got Trump. And by the way, we also got Obama, and we also got Bush, and we also got Clinton. It's one ruling class that takes turns stomping on people. Now, it's bad enough that normal people don't notice that, but for libertarians to not notice that and go, well, we just got stepped on really hard by the left jackboot. I want the right jackboot landing on us next time, and thinking that was a choice or a change or anything other than just following the script that the ruling class is feeding us. Like, I expect normal people who've never thought about philosophy or anything to fall for that. But for libertarians to fall for that, where you get both, not only do you get both over time, left, right, left, right, left, right, you have a bunch of Republicans and a bunch of Democrats in Congress every day for your entire life, and all of them advocate warmongering and robbing you and violently controlling your life. and to legitimize that and play the game and pretend there was a choice. It's two faces. Somebody made a movie about this. It was called Jones Plantation. Somebody wrote a book about this. It's called Jones Plantation, where the slave masters say, these people are getting uppity. I know. We'll pretend they have a choice, and they'll play this stupid game, and that'll make them complacent and less likely to resist. I know people who've read this and watched the movie who then voted for Trump. You were told how the trick works. You were told how the deception works. You were told how you were manipulated into cheering for your own enslavement, and you turned around and cheered for your own enslavement. And it's just, when supposed libertarians do it, it's so fucking frustrating. Like way more so than the duped livestock being manipulated by their masters the way they always have, and I expect them to fall for it until somebody explains to them how the game works. Dave Smith should have known how the game works. Tom Woods should have known how the fucking game works. And they turned around and basically gave their, even if only half-hearted, they gave their blessing to someone now committing mass murder, being a pawn of the war machine, being a pawn of the bankers, being drastically increasing extortion. And the fact that, we thought he was going to be a little bit nicer than he was. First of all, do you never learn? You're like, we thought that the politician running for office was going to do the nice things once he got into power that he said he was going to do when he wanted people to put him into power. Like, that's pretty bad. But even if he had done the nicer version, you're still legitimizing the game 100% against libertarian principles. You did something 100% against libertarian principles.
No, look, man, you're living in Ancapistan in your head. Let me bring you back to the real world, okay? The system does not need or care about me legitimizing it. They don't give a shit. They're not going to be more or less legitimate whether or not you go out and point at the less bad master in the system. The other thing, there was going to be an election, and one of the candidates were going to be elected. And if we have a small sliver of opportunity to push a little bit, to influence a little bit in one direction or another, there's no reason not to take that opportunity to beg the cartel to be a little less abusive of us for the next 4 years, to back off slightly, even a little slightly on Ross's caging. Like, if we have that moment of opportunity, this was one of the most important elections of our lifetime. And I know people say that a lot, but it literally was. You're just not living in the real world. There was going to be a president, Larken. Why not exert the minuscule little sliver of influence that each of us has to push it in the slightly less bad direction than to just let it go off the cliff with Kamala?
Yeah, what's really sad is that I told you might need a bark.
I did it, dude. I did that. I did it good. Yeah, let's go.
That was good. The fact that, like, any supposed libertarian voting for Trump views it in terms of, we nudged it a little bit in the direction of, which you didn't anyway. He just, by his own numbers, he just has begun implementing the biggest tax increase in the history of the world. Trump is estimating his tariffs will bring in $6 trillion, which would make this the largest tax increase in the history of the world anywhere ever. And it's a tax on Americans. But beside the fact that you didn't even accomplish the nudge, and Doge didn't do shit, they're still spending at Biden levels. They put on a show. They fell for it. But let's pretend that stuff actually even happened.
No, Ross is free right now.
Yeah,
that happened.
One guy's out. That's good. And if 100 people have to get blown up, 100 civilians standing in a circle somewhere have to get blown to smithereens, fuck them, I guess, because Ross is out. But the whole thought pattern of thinking that that is our tool to accomplish something, of voting, it doesn't just fail to accomplish it. What it does is it takes thought and energy and time away from things that would actually do something good. Like, look how many people voted for Trump delusionally thinking he's going to end the IRS. I've seen tons of Trump supporters saying he's going to end the income tax and end the IRS. No, he's thinking not. Holy crap. First of all, he can't. Second of all, he wouldn't even if he could. But how many people said that? If it was a few, 20, 30 million people all excited at the idea, what did they accomplish by putting Trump into power? Well, we still have the income tax, and now we have a massive increase in the form of tariffs, massive tax increase, and the economy falling apart at the seams. Good job. Instead of that, what if all those people who were tricked back into focusing their energy on this stupid circus looked at each other and went, wait, there's 30 million of us? Why don't we just not give the IRS our money? There's 30 million of us, or whatever the number is. You think they can lock up 30 million stinking people? You think they can even collect? If 30 million of us say, we're not going to report shit to the IRS anymore. We're not going to withhold from each other if somebody works for us. We're not going to tell them anything. We're not going to give them anything. We're not going to file anything. We're not going to pay anything. Even if we're all the way gentle and just let them take our money one at a time, they couldn't do a damn thing about it. And some of us wouldn't be gentle when they came to rob us. But instead, those 30 million, however many people it was, who were all gung-ho about Trump ending the income tax, you accomplished less than nothing, because what you did is reinforce the idea that the way to end the income tax is to ask the master to tell us we're allowed to keep what we earn. And to even be thinking anywhere near that framework means you're still 100% a slave. If you think the people need the permission of the master to have the right to keep what they earn, you already lost. And by voting and petitioning for them to abolish the income tax, which is never going to happen, you're still reinforcing the idea that we need their permission. You are still reinforcing the slave mentality. The fact that you're asking for a nicer slave master doesn't matter in the slightest. What matters is you're telling everybody that the civilized, righteous, effective way to achieve freedom is to ask the masters to give us permission to be free. Holy shit, why do I still need to explain this to libertarians?
I don't know where you are, Larken, but you're not in the real world. Okay, look, did you want Kamala to win? Because you had two choices, and you chose to do nothing, which is the same thing as letting Kamala win this election.
Kamala did win, by the way. Biden and Kamala were in for 4 years.
I mean, win again. You know what I mean.
Yeah, but they were in for 4 years, like Trump was before that, and then Trump was again after that. And like a Democrat absolutely will be at some point after Trump, probably immediately after Trump, but maybe a few more down the line, but they're going to be in too. And Congress is going to consist of Democrats and Republicans, both robbing the hell out of people. So it wasn't a choice. We get both. They are both robbing and dominating us no matter which side you vote for.
Not this 4 years. This 4 years could have been Kamala, but it wasn't, because some people actually chose to act to try stopping her.
Except, and the president can't even do shit by themselves anyway. Although Trump is being drastically dictatorial.
He freed Ross.
President has, yeah, he can free a guy. He can pardon by himself. That's one thing he can do.
Didn't he also bring Russia and Ukraine closer to peace than they've been this entire time, trying to put a stop to the meat grinder happening over there?
No. And he pretended to be anti-war, and they play games. And Ukraine and Russia were never, and libertarians should understand this, that was never about, oh, meanies attacking good guys. Let's give money to the good guys. You gave money to a bunch of literal Nazis to empower a ruling class so they could protect themselves against the psychopaths in the ruling class of Russia.
I think when you complain about literal Nazis, it boosts us in the YouTube algorithm. So please continue.
And actual literal Nazis with swastikas and everything, including the guy that the Canadian Parliament brilliantly gave a standing ovation to a Nazi war criminal. So anyway, sorry, that's an aside. But And the whole, well, he no new wars. And the first time around, they were like, well, he didn't start any new wars. Like, that's a weirdly, like, narrow thing to say. He did drastically increase the bombing and droning in existing conflicts in Syria and in Afghanistan and a few other places. But I guess as long as you're not doing mass murder and terrorism in a new area, just where you already were, it's like, well, the mafia, they're still just beating up and robbing people in the same neighborhoods they already were. The new mafia Don took over, but he didn't expand his territory and beat up new people. He's still beating up the old people. Yeah, he's beating them up worse, being more violent and demanding more from them, but he didn't start new stuff. So he's a great guy. He's just awesome. Well, now that he's a lame duck, now we're seeing new wars, bombing the shit out of Yemen. I mean, that was happening, but he's escalating it and obviously talking and trying to rile up the American people to cheer for a war with Iran, which would be just fucking horrible in every imaginable way.
So I need to understand, are you just kind of expressing your feelings here subjectively? Do you actually have, like, are you saying that libertarians that supported Trump over Kamala in the election are, like, morally bad, evil, they actually did something immoral? Like, where are you coming from? Because I'm having a hard time matching what you're saying, which, I mean, the rhetoric sounds great, Larken, but I mean, again, we live in a world where there was going to be a president, and I keep coming back to this because this is what's happening. Are you saying that I did evil by suggesting that I wanted that slightly less evil to that other evil? What are you accusing me of?
There are two sides. There's the practical and there's the moral. In practical terms, libertarians who voted for Trump were just idiotic as hell. It was just fucking stupid tactically. You didn't do anything to achieve freedom. You made things worse. You played the game. You legitimized the thing. Morally, you helped to enable evil. Really bad things are happening right now as a result of a particular puppet being in power that you helped put into power. And you saying, well, other people were trying to put somebody else in power and they might have done something worse. Okay, and they would have been responsible, at least partly, for the bad things done by the person that they handed the ring of power to. You are partly responsible for the bad things done by people in power that you handed the ring of power to. You put him there. You helped put that guy there. You helped serve these agendas. You help enable the violence related to immigration. Now, literally no due process, whisking people off to slave camps in El Salvador with no due process. Literally that. Like, that's pretty bad. And instead of, at least I can just barely give Dave Smith credit for coming out and condemning the evil, because a lot of people are making excuses. Well, they're bad people. They should be whisked off. They don't deserve due process. Okay, so they didn't get due process, and you magically know they're evil. How? They didn't get a trial. There wasn't evidence. There wasn't proof. You know, maybe somebody should come up with a concept called due process, where you don't let the government do anything to anybody unless they first go through some sort of process to prove that the person did something really bad. So lots of people are making excuses for it, even some supposed libertarians. But at least Dave Smith recognized that some of this is really bad. I haven't heard him bash that yet, but hopefully he has. But even if you have enough awareness to go, wow, he's doing really bad stuff, I wish that hadn't happened. Just look at you have overall, you have two main choices. You can say, I believe and stick to these principles. I believe in non-aggression. I believe in not initiating violence against people who haven't hurt or harmed anybody. That's a principle. And if somebody abides by that principle and says stuff in line with that principle, you can go, yeah, I agree with what he's saying. And if that person then turns around and goes, I'm going to go murder my neighbors, you can go, oh, no, that's bad. I'm still against that. Because you have principles. When you choose a person or a party or a political agenda as the thing you support, now it's outside of you. It isn't what you believe. It isn't moral principles anymore. You handed the ring of power to somebody else, and you did it on purpose, based on the utterly asinine hope that the person would use that power for what you wanted. First of all, when has that ever happened? Second of all, why the fuck would you expect that? You didn't share power with them. You gave it to them. You gave them power over you. Whatever the outcome, that was fucking stupid. If you give somebody else power over you, whatever they do with it, even if they're a nice slave master, that is idiotic. And when you give someone power over others, that's fucking evil. And now we're seeing the real world results of it. And it's so damn frustrating. And, you know, there already are some. When a bunch of libertarians come back and go, oh, well, gee, I was wrong. I'm super disappointed in the whole like mass murder and horrible authoritarian fascism going on. Darn, I had hoped for a better outcome. And they come back and go, oh, now I'm a voluntarist. Why the fuck should anybody ever trust you again? You helped enable authoritarian evil after saying you believed in freedom. It's not you fell for the crap and then you learned better. You learned better and then you fell for the crap. And Trump's, I've said this before, and this isn't bragging. If I was in charge of their propaganda machine and I had no soul, I could have made a way better puppet up there to make almost every conservative and a whole lot of libertarians cheer their asses off and cheer him into power. Trump didn't even do a good job of pretending to be pro-freedom. He didn't even pretend to be libertarian. So if somebody falls for this crap, plays the game, and empowers evil, after saying they understand freedom, after saying they understand non-aggression and self-ownership, and then comes back and goes, darn, I guess I was fooled. Why the hell should I ever trust you again? You don't have principles. You threw them out the window. And you don't have the intelligence to recognize when you're being played by psychopaths. Why would I not expect you to do the same damn thing tomorrow or next week or next year? Because you obviously put the political solution above your principles, which means you don't have principles. And it's kind of frustrating to watch.
Look, the ring of power was about to slide onto one of two fingers, and all we did by voting was nudge that ring onto the less bad finger. That's it. What's wrong with that? We could have done that.
I don't think you set this up on purpose, but that is perfect because those familiar with Tolkien will realize that different people wore the ring, different people were fighting over the ring, and Gandalf had to explain the ring only has one master. You can wear it. You can try to do good with it. It doesn't matter whose finger it's on. It will serve the evil Dark Lord, no matter whose finger it's on. And that is a perfect analogy. It doesn't matter if you put it on Trump's finger or Kamala or anybody else's. The only thing political power is going to serve is political power. And so, yeah, I agree. The ring was going to be on one puppet or another, and it makes no difference in the long run because the ring only ever serves one master. And that's why I think that analogy of his is so genius. And by the way, Tolkien was smart enough that he admitted he was an anarchist. He tied in a letter to his nephew, I lean more and more towards anarchism, and bashed the idea that anybody should have power over others. Huh. It's almost like he understood.
The voting libertarians know everything you just said. And they agree. We're not disagreeing on any of that. The ring of power only serves the power itself, the government itself. We do not disagree. But the ring goes on somebody's finger every 4 years. And that's the only distinction that we're talking about. And the micro tyrant whose finger it slides onto every 4 years uses the power slightly differently. Yeah, in the long run, zoom out, it might all sort of become an amorphous blob of the destruction of liberty. But in small increments, in small ways, around the margins, why shouldn't we nudge that ring onto the less bad tyrant's finger? Ross is free right now.
You couldn't say
I'm not trying to do it as a meme. I'm I'm trying to stay in character and say, look, we got tangible benefits out of this, out of nudging that ring onto one finger and preventing Kamala Harris from making things much worse than Trump will.
Right. Once again, the practical and then the moral. Practically speaking, for over 200 years in this country, people have been voting for more freedom and got the opposite the whole time. Now, when we started, there's the obvious exception of slavery. When this country started, literally everybody, Federalists and Anti-Federalists, were way, way, way more libertarian than any Republican or Democrat has ever been. And then people voted and people voted and people voted and people voted and people voted. Now we're here with the biggest authoritarian empire in the history of the world. The idea that you can get from here to there by voting, well, we're just going to incrementally, has that ever happened anywhere in the world at any time in history? Or have people trying to vote for the good guy empowered authoritarian monsters the whole stinking time by handing them the ring of power?
Yeah, it's happening right now. It's happening right now in Argentina with Javier Milei.
Except it isn't.
What are you talking about? He's drastically reduced government in Argentina.
Temporarily, sort of, kind of, while being buddies with Trump and doing some other stuff. But the thing that matters in Argentina, which is worth celebrating, and actually Milei is a symptom of it, not the cause of it, is the number of people talking about actual anarchism and anarcho-capitalism. And I had the privilege of talking to somebody, I forget her name because I suck with names, at Anarchapulco a couple of years ago, who lives down there. She was all excited because a lot of people are actually talking about that, like more so than in the US, apparently. So getting a guy on the throne who's going to be nicer, like temporarily, okay, but the ruling class is still there. You think it's going to stay as nice as it is? It's still robbing people. It's still controlling people. It's just whipping them less hard. But the entire notion of, well, give the ring to the right person. And there's so many brilliant things they're in the Lord of the Rings books, and pieces of it show up in the movies that Tolkien totally understood. And so when Little Hobbit tries to give the wizard the ring, you can handle it. And Gandalf says, don't tempt me. Understand, Frodo, I would use the ring through a desire to do good, but through me it would wield a power too terrible to imagine. He was one of like 3 whole people who had the wisdom to go, don't even give it to me. Because if you give anybody the power over others, you're making it worse. But the only,
but we would all agree that we'd all agree that we'd all prefer Gandalf to be the one with the ring to Saruman.
Nope.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
nope.
If we had to pick one of the two, if somebody's putting the ring on,
Gandalf wouldn't even prefer that. He said, don't give it to me. And instead, we're going to risk everything to try to destroy it, rather than Gandalf put it on and try to take the power. So I'm not going to nerd out too long, but the only other thing I'm going to say, which does not, I don't think it shows up in the movies, is they're like on the way somewhere and they're like, how the hell are we going to do this? We have to go all the way in there and get to this big volcano and fling a thing. And hope that's not a spoiler for anybody. And I have to fling, like, how are we going to do that? And Gandalf explains in the book, the one thing that would never occur to Sauron is that somebody having this power, instead of trying to use it, would try to destroy it, because he can't comprehend the idea of not wanting power over others. And so he says that's the only reason we have any chance, is because he's not going to be looking for us. He's not going to be expecting us to try to throw away the power we have. And if actual libertarians actually focused on libertarianism and voluntarists and anarchists on destroying it, we're pretty freaking close to doing that, because you don't actually literally have to go to a volcano. You have to get enough people to understand that they're not beholden to these psychopathic crooks, right or left, that they have no obligation to obey, and that every chance they get to disobey and keep their own money and trade beyond the tentacles of the ruling class, they should be focused on that. And it's pretty easy to make an entire empire fall over if even 1/10 of the people just say, well, we don't acknowledge your right to rule, So screw you. We're going to disobey your laws. Maybe we'll even resist. Some of us will even resist. But even if we just quietly do it where you can't possibly keep track of it all and control it all and rob it all, like that's the entire solution. And if even just the people who called themselves libertarians were looking in that direction instead of, we're going to run in this party and vote for this and not win and play these stupid games and accomplish exactly nothing because we were so focused on having Sauron tell us we're allowed to be free that it didn't occur to us that we shouldn't be asking him. We should be living free. And if he sends his orcs after us to beat us up, yeah, some of us are going to resist. And it's all a numbers game. And this is the thing I pointed out a million times, then I'll shut up and you can make a bad argument. For all the times people say, well, if we could just elect, if you had enough people to vote change, you have 5 times the number of people you need to disobey literally any empire out of existence. If you have 49% of the people who recognize these clowns don't have the right to rule us at all, disobey and stop paying, that's the end. What do you think they're going to do to 150 some million people who openly just say, screw you, we're not obeying anymore? But if you have 49 people still stuck in this stupid fucking game voting for a master, they accomplish exactly nothing except legitimizing the game. All the time and energy that supposed libertarians put into politics instead of disobedience isn't just accomplishing nothing, it's accomplishing way worse than nothing. Because it's reinforcing in the minds of everybody else. The Libertarian Party is reinforcing in the mind of everybody it talks to the idea that the solution is to get our clowns into the circus and hopefully have them give us permission to be free. Reinforcing that idea is reinforcing slavery no matter who wins.
Are you done purity spiraling? All right.
No, I'm going to keep spiraling.
So
talking.
You're just going to be irrelevant. That's what you're doing. You're not going to vote. You're not going to participate. And the people that will sully themselves with this dumb, admittedly invalid, immoral system, we're going to be the ones trying to push the ring onto the slightly less bad guy's hand. We're going to be the ones with relevance that are actually doing something while you guys just complain about your principles in the basement. And that's... I don't think I can do this anymore. I think I did it for 35 minutes and I think I'm done.
I'm impressed you made it that long.
So,
You can turn off the
yeah, I'm
sock.
turning that off now. But I did kind of make a list of, I think, the points that you brought up that I'd like us to maybe reinforce a little better. So, I really don't think most of us do a good enough job addressing that thing that I just kept hammering. I hammered one single point for 30 minutes, really, and I'm sorry for that, but I want us to really, really figure this out, which is we're doing nothing other than nudging towards a lesser evil, and there's nothing inherently wrong with a libertarian, nothing inherently contradictory about a libertarian doing that. And you present a lot of good sort of like you're an idiot arguments. But I really would like us to come up with something more solid than that. Is it like more objectively wrong to nudge that ring? Are we becoming culpable for what Trump does? Because I'm pretty sure, and I could toggle the devil's advocate thing back on and make a pretty clear argument that voting is not accepting culpability for what the candidate then goes on to do. You know, in the same way, I'm going to turn this back on now. So, you know, in this, if I go into a gun shop if I run a gun store and somebody comes in and purchases a gun from me and then goes and kills somebody or murders somebody with it, I'm not culpable for that murder. I just, you know, nudged the gun in the direction of the least bad of the two customers or something like that. I'm doing a bad job at this, but you know, what they then go on to do at the power, I don't bear culpability for. Do I ? As I turn this off? I think that's really at the crux of a lot of what we're talking about here. If it's just our opinion and we're making fun of them and calling them dumb, then, I mean, okay, that's fun. It is. but at the end of the day, that's also kind of weak. Can we really put together a solid argument for why it's wrong? Why are you actually culpable when you make your slaves suggestion in the suggestion box? I think we can, but I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, and to me, the two sides are because to me the big picture of what do the people believe, that is the thing that matters at the end of the day. What do the people believe? If the people believe they own themselves, nobody's enslaving them. Like there may be individual victims here and there by brute force, but if the people understand that they own themselves, we win. It's done. And so in the big picture, the thing that matters is what do people believe? In the short term, there's, well, how hard is the master whipping us today? And can we make it a little bit less nasty? And so first I'll touch on the short term, which doesn't matter in the long term. That's why it's the short term. But human beings are weird because we move through time. We're going along through time, and the present and our current emotions feel like everything to us. And sometimes we can use our brains to back up and go, yeah, but that isn't everything. We should probably be a little bit more careful. But when people get excited, we're going to vote for this guy, like this new libertarian candidate, in quotes. I'm tempted to say, okay, can we do this one at a time? The last libertarian you voted for, or anybody voted for president, what did that accomplish legislatively? Oh, nothing. Absolutely nothing. What about the one before that? Oh, absolutely nothing. What about the one before that? Oh, absolutely nothing. You get where this is going. The conservatives, the constitutionalists, and I was one. In 1994, I was all excited about the Republican Revolution because their rhetoric was way better than Trump's is. They were like, we're going to do away with the income tax. We're going to slash and burn the federal government all over the place. We're going to send almost everything back to the states. We're going to actually make a gigantic difference. And I know back in my day, most of you whippersnappers don't even remember that, half of you weren't alive for it. But I was, and I was all excited. And I'm going to admit how excited I was and how much hope I had because of the rhetoric that came out of Newt Gingrich, that lying piece of crap, who's still there as a parasite. The rhetoric's gone. Phil Gramm, Rick Santorum. There were a whole bunch of people doing a great job of saying things that sounded so pro-freedom, and they were drastic pro-freedom, anti-government. They weren't Trump's muddle-headed bullshit that his supporters wanted to just hallucinate into being pro-freedom when they weren't. They were, we're going to do away with the income tax. We're going to slash all other taxes all over the place. We're going to end the Department of Education and the Department of this, the Department of that, and the ATF and the DEA. Those aren't federal matters. Send tons of things back to the states. We're going to do it all. They won the House. They won the Senate. They won the White House. They didn't do shit. And so that was a very helpful lesson for me to realize, wow, not only did the vote is sort of a tiny little thing that doesn't matter. You press a button and whatever the hell, who cares? But the hope and the energy and the excitement from pro-freedom people that gets diverted into that. And I know because I was there and it happened to me. And I was excited for what they were saying. I was thrilled. I thought this is finally a massive changing moment. This is the most important election of our lifetime. And the Republicans won in landslides everywhere. And a bunch of the people running had never been in office before. And the funny thing is, those people got into office, and what they very quickly said is, oh, they sat us down and they told us how things really work. We can't do shit. We can't repeal anything. We can't change anything. A few of them were honest enough to say that. The other ones just turned into career parasites. But the reason it's so destructive is because of that funneling of excitement and hope and positivity and energy into something that the machine knows is never going to accomplish a goddamn thing. And it isn't just, oh, you made them excited. You diverted that away from where it would have gone. By the way, Mr. Smith talks about that in the book. When they're all riled up and angry at us, we need to give them an outlet for that accomplishes nothing. Because if we don't, they might actually resist. They might run away. They might overthrow us. They might actually do something that achieves freedom. So we're going to hand them this process and let them vote for the new plantation manager. And they can get excited. Some of them will think they won. Some of them will think they lost. But they will put their all into it, get all excited. And then they'll still be slaves on a plantation. And they'll be exhausted. And they'll go, oh, I guess didn't work out great. But don't worry, in 4 years, they'll forget and fall for the same bullshit again. Democracy is the best trick tyrants have ever come up with to make their human livestock put up with way worse shit than they would have otherwise. Because if it was just a king saying, I do whatever the hell I want to you, I take whatever I want from you, I make you do whatever I want, then people recognize the reality and resist. But if they say, oh, you get to vote between Tweedledee and Tweedledum, then even a bunch of supposed libertarians go and they do that. And they give away, to sound all woo-woo, they give away their power, literally, by feeding it into a game designed to enslave them. But they forget, because the new guy sounds so good. What did it accomplish last? Can any of you even remember the libertarian candidates for president 8, 12, 16 years back? They don't matter. They didn't accomplish anything. It didn't do anything. And so on the practical side, it does nothing, but what matters and people are like, so you think not voting fixes it? No, voting makes it worse. Not voting isn't the fix. It's just the thing to not make it worse. So if somebody, I use this analogy often, if somebody has a headache and they're hitting themselves in the toe with a hammer and I go, what are you doing? And they say, I'm trying to cure my headache. And I say, stop hitting yourself in the toe with a hammer. That's not going to help. And they go, oh, so I shouldn't do anything about my headache? Well, you shouldn't do something that A, doesn't fix the problem and B, makes a worse problem. But no, not hitting yourself in the toe won't cure your headache. But it will prevent you from making another problem. Then you can do other things to cure the headache. And the cure for statism isn't just not voting for it. It's disobeying and resisting. And before that, getting as many other people as you possibly can to be of like mindset so they too will disobey and resist instead of asking the master for mercy. And so many people who sort of understand the philosophical stuff and self-ownership and non-aggression, they don't seem to understand the game at all. They don't seem to understand the manipulations and the deceptions, and they keep falling for it. And they don't get that you're not just not accomplishing anything, you're accomplishing less than nothing. Because anybody watching, have you heard this Libertarian Party? They say lots of stuff I agree with. I'm going to vote for them. Good. You just got that person to do something absolutely fucking useless and got them to associate the idea of freedom with asking for a different master, which is the opposite of actual freedom. So it's worse than nothing. Anyway,
I want to push back on this. I want to see if this you are legitimizing government by voting. I want to see if that actually holds up. I mean, like, if somebody says, what are you talking about legitimizing? The government doesn't need my vote or participation to be legitimate. It's going to exist tomorrow, whether or not I go vote on whatever it was, November 15th or whatever it was. Legitimacy is irrelevant. They have power, and they've allowed this small sliver of ability to influence that power one way or another. How does that legitimize it? Like I can speak out loud. I should turn this back on. I can speak out. Yeah, the toggling bullshit Patrick mode on. All right. Well, I mean, I guess that was the argument. Like, I don't think legitimacy plays into it, Larken. I think it's I know they're an invalid system. It's an unjust, invalid, immoral, coercive mafia of an institution. And for some stupid reason, this mafia allows the people that are in its territory to slightly influence how they coerce the people in the area.
Sort of. Yeah. And the way to describe it that's actually way more precise, it doesn't make it legitimate. Ruling classes aren't legitimate no matter what anybody does. It's that it reinforces the apparent legitimacy of the ruling class in the eyes of everybody watching. So if somebody quietly votes and nobody notices, doesn't make any difference either way. You accomplish jack shit. But when they're loudly saying, we're running this party and I'm going to vote, and Tom Woods and Dave Smith talking about, well, I think maybe voting for Trump is blah, blah, blah. The effect that has on the perceptions and the beliefs of anybody watching, that's the problem. It's not that it actually makes it legitimate. It's that it gives the appearance of legitimacy. And when you have people who claim to believe in freedom and self-ownership, basically talking in ways that obviously imply that results of elections somehow give somebody the right to do something and give them the power, that's teaching the exact opposite of what we need people to learn. It doesn't actually make it legitimate, but it makes other people think it is. And so how many people call themselves libertarian who vote for the Libertarian Party because they think that's a legitimate way to try to change how society is structured by bickering over who gets to wear the ring of power? It's all in what people believe. And any participation in the system, any hint that the system is at all legitimate, or that should be our focus, or that it even matters, is reinforcing the thing that we have to do away with. It's reinforcing the ring of power instead of saying, I don't give a shit who votes for you. You don't have the right to rule. And if instead of libertarians going, maybe we can have an impact by voting for this guy, they all said, it doesn't matter who wins. None of them have the right to rule. And we're actually consistent, because you can't say that and then turn around and say, by the way, you should probably vote for this guy. Like, what? Does it matter or not? Is it legitimate or not? Like, pick one.
Okay.
Because when you play the game.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think the point you're making is valid, and I don't hear many people, many libertarians, anarchists, anarcho-capitalists talking about it. So it's incorrect to say that voting legitimizes the system. The correct thing to say would be that voting makes the system appear legitimate to the masses.
To the
that would probably be a better way to say it, right? Because nothing legitimizes coercion, except consent,
basically,
right?
Yeah, the shorthand version is, it's kind of inaccurate, but legitimizes it in the eyes of other people is what it means. But without saying it, it might sound. Now, you could sort of argue that, hey, if the guy is robbing you and you voted to put him there, like, you sort of consented, which you still didn't, and it's still not legitimate. But the people doing it are even trying to legitimize it. Like, they're trying to put that guy into power as if they think that's legitimate. And some people are just like, no, it's all bullshit, but I'm trying to have the lesser of two evils. So there's the whole range of weird attitudes. But all of them are doing things that, in the eyes of everybody else watching, all the normal status people, it absolutely looks like, oh, well, I guess you believe in the game of democracy, because if you didn't, why the hell would you be doing that? I guess you believe that whoever gets the most votes has the right to rule, because why the fuck would you have a political party if you didn't believe that? Good question. Don't rightly know. Doesn't make sense.
Okay. How much time do you have? Because I have like 3 or 4 meaty things that we could go into next.
I have pretty dang much. I don't know how long attention span.
Just let me know when I wear you out, okay? Because this is a deep topic. Our libertarians have been bickering with each other for almost 40 years now about voting, and it would be nice to have a video out there where we cover all the main points, and so that libertarians never have to argue about this again, right?
Yeah, sure, that lot.
All right. So I want to talk about Milei and Argentina. Okay, so let me toggle this back on. Look, Larken, you can't say that voting cannot achieve more freedom. That voting never never increases freedom. You cannot say that voting never increases freedom. Look at what's happened in Argentina. A bunch of people voted for an anarcho-capitalist to be the president. And that anarcho-capitalist has gone in slashing and burning with a chainsaw. Afuera. All these government departments no longer exist because of voting and because of an anarcho-capitalist joining the system to defeat the system from the inside. He has slashed taxes. He has eliminated rent controls, which is making their real estate market finally bounce back. He's putting that entire country's economy back on the map from a socialist nightmare. You cannot say, it would just be wrong, factually incorrect to say that Argentina is not more free and slaving under less government controls today than they were before Milei was voted for and elected.
Well, here's the thing about freedom, because in one sense, that's true. You can have a change in legislation that, oh, the master doesn't whip us as hard, or he doesn't whip us for like having marijuana now. He used to whip us and now he doesn't for that particular thing. The concept of more freedom is, well, I don't want to give a whole talk on the brilliant writings of Frederick Douglass, who was a slave, because his realizations about freedom are just awesome. So everybody go read what he wrote. I won't have to reference that. But the idea of more freedom in terms of, oh, they let us do more things. Like, that's nicer. It's on a practical level, as I've said before, if I was going to be owned by a slave master, I would rather he be less sadistic than the other one. That, like,
I really hope you vote in the next election then, Larken.
I'm not going to, because I don't believe any slave master has the right to whip me at all. And I'm not going to participate in a thing that gives apparent legitimacy to the whipping. But it was interesting to read one of the things that just made me fall out of my chair reading Frederick Douglass. This is my shorthand characterization of it. Basically, at some point, he was allowed to go work, like, off the property of his owner, the person who pretended he was his property, and he could go do a job because he was all excited. I get to do a job. And then he'd come back and his master would let him keep some of the wages. But you're like, you better show me all of it and I'll decide how much to take. In other words, an income tax. He went from, no, you're just directly, openly, obviously the property of this master, to now you can sort of be free, kind of, sort of, go do work, earn money for yourself, and the master will decide how much of you he'll let you keep. And the thing that made me fall out of my chair is to see Frederick Douglass, a former slave, describe an income tax as worse than slavery, which he did. He said, this is worse because it gives apparent legitimacy and justness to the master letting me keep this. When obviously, if that's good, it means he shouldn't be taking any. It's all mine. If there's something good about him letting me keep some of what I earned, it means it was all mine and he had never had the right to take any. So at first he was all excited about this new arrangement, which was basically an income tax. And then he realized the insidiousness, and literally a former slave described the arrangement of an income tax where a master gets to decide how much of what you earn he will let you keep, as worse than just outright slavery, because it gave the appearance that it wasn't slavery, even though it still totally is. And you don't have to believe me when I argue that. You can go see literally a former slave arguing that. So when he explained that, I think I was in prison when I first read that thing. So I was like, this is a good place to read this for not paying tribute to the ruling class for income taxes. So the whole thing of more freedom, either you own yourself or somebody else has a right to rule you. It's a binary choice. There isn't an in-between. Anything in between is somebody else has the right to rule you. If it's, well, I get to keep 50% of what I earn and otherwise they're allowed to enslave me. Okay, well, who decided the 50%? Oh, they did. Well, if they decide, then you're all the way their slave. You're just hoping for mercy. You're just hoping for more permission to do more of what you want. Now, on a practical day-to-day basis, that can be more comfortable if your master doesn't work you as hard and whips you less often. But you are not one shred more free. So the thing with Milei, and I don't pretend to know all the details of what he's done. I did read a long email from somebody who lives down there and is very familiar with it and said it's not really as good as they're making it out to be, and he's doing a bunch of stuff that is not at all anarchistic, and playing these games, but there's still the short-term benefits. Now, if I was a psychopath in charge of their propaganda, I'm not saying this is what Milei is. I know almost nothing about him personally. He seems to be just a cartoon character, but it's fun watching him like talk about anarchism. What I would do to put a puppet on the throne that everybody would worship is have him actually dramatically reduce authoritarian controls to get all these uppity slaves back in line, because a lot of people are on the brink of going, well, screw you. If we can get away with not paying you anything, we'll not pay you anything. But the thing that matters down in Argentina is the same thing that matters everywhere else. If enough people, and I don't know if Milei has done this, I hope he has. I don't know if I would have heard about it if he did. If he came out and said, look, I'm going to legally do everything I can, but you have no obligation to pay a damn thing anyway. Just don't. I'm the president. Don't send any money to the ruling class. Now, I'm pretty sure I would have heard it if he had said that, but maybe he has. If somebody knows better, let me know. If he hasn't, why the fuck hasn't he? If he's actually an anarchist and he's on the throne, if somebody was dumb enough to put me on the throne and call me president, the first thing I'd say is, I'm just a guy. I don't have any right to rule you. None of these jokers have any right to rule you. By the way, there's a book called The Iron Web. It's sort of about that. It's a novel I wrote. If you haven't read it, go read it. If he hasn't done that, then he isn't really undermining the belief in statism and the belief that people should bow to authority and pay tribute to a ruling class. He's just saying, well, my ruling class isn't going to make you pay as much tribute. Well, okay, on the scale of practical comfort, that's an improvement. It's better to be a slave that gets whipped less often. And it is not 1 millimeter closer to being a free human being if you still need permission of the ruling class to keep what you earn. Even if they're giving you permission to keep most of it, you're still not a free human being. So in one sense, freedom is a binary choice rather than a scale, even if on practical terms, it's like, well, we get kicked less often by this master.
I forgot who I was talking with. It was a prominent libertarian on Twitter, and I tried to make this point. And the point I think you're trying to make, let me repeat it back just to see if we agree, is that freedom by permission or granted freedom is not freedom. It's not. I think I actually said liberty, but it kind of means the same thing. It's like if you're doing something with permission, that's not liberty. That's a parent-child relationship or a master-slave relationship.
Yep.
Liberty is not having anyone to ask, because you are the sovereign. You are a self-owning individual that can do whatever they want as long as they're not hurting other people's sovereign individualness. Being granted permission, authorization, permitting, all this stuff. That's not liberty. But I think we can both also agree, to give Milei his credit, he's lessened the tyranny. He's softened the sting of the whip. I think your argument, though, correct me if I'm wrong, is that softening the whip is not him increasing liberty in Argentina. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, on a practical sense, there's sort of more freedom, but you're still not a free human being if somebody else gets to decide what they'll let you do.
So let's stretch it to its maximum, right? So like,
sure.
If he reduced taxes to zero and said, okay, we're passing a law, no one from going forward has to remit taxes yearly to the government of Argentina. How is that different to liberty?
Because my immediate question to him was, are you allowed to change your mind later and raise it above zero? Is it up to you now and in the future whether it's going to stay zero?
Well, Milei would say Yeah. Malay would probably say, no, of course not. The government's an invalid institution and they never had the right to have tax. That's why I've reduced it to 0.
Okay. And if he said that, I'd say, okay, so if it comes back up, you still think we shouldn't pay it? If somebody else is in, or if you turned out to be a liar or whatever, if tax rates go up later and get imposed later, should we not pay it? Do we not have an obligation to pay it?
It's interesting.
Because if he said that, he might as well have just said that to begin with, instead of legislating something. Just say, hey, I'm the president. Stop sending money to these crooks. And I don't know what their legal system is like. A president here could pardon anybody prosecuted for tax crimes.
Turns out they can blanket pardon lots of people and do it retroactively.
For completely heinous crimes.
For entire ranges of time.
Whatever you may have done in here, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's basically like a king. They can do whatever they want. Yeah, interesting. So I guess, your critique is that he should be speaking the right words to go along with the actions that are increases in liberty or reductions in tyranny. Because I remember you and I had this conversation. It was a super awkward video because it was kind of earlier on in my YouTube career when I was doing the Not Governor campaign. I was running for Not Governor of Texas. And I made it a point in the Libertarian Party to constantly, annoyingly, remind people that, I don't want your vote as some kind of elected politician to bring you liberty. That's not how you get liberty. Liberty is taken, not requested, and not given. And I had to constantly remind people voting is an invalid form of governance. Don't vote for me if that's what you're wanting. If you want me behind a bigger podium with a larger microphone, toss your name in the hat for me and I'll go do that. But I'm going to be saying the same thing. This is a bullshit system. It's invalid. I have no power over you and no one here does. And the democratic system is not just, that kind of stuff.
And that's why you're the closest candidate I ever came closest to endorsing, sort of, kind of, even though I still said I'm not voting for your ass.
And I got actively nowhere in the Libertarian Party. Who was surprised by that?
What a shock.
So I don't know, because obviously I don't speak the language, and I only see the translated video clips or whatever. So I can't say that he has or hasn't said these things, but what it sounds like you're saying is that you would appreciate it if he had said those things along with the actions. Because, in a hypothetical world, he probably doesn't have, or in the real world, he doesn't have the ability to just probably end the income tax in Argentina, but he can make a lot of cuts or make deals to make cuts. You're saying that you would have liked to see him just speak more like you're saying.
Yeah, in fact, not in addition to doing those actions, but instead of doing them. Like coming out and saying, well, I could try to do legislative stuff to make it so the ruling class is officially demanding less money of you. Or I can just tell you they don't have any right to take anything from you. Stop giving them your money. And if half the country did that, that's the end of the ruling class. Just anywhere, that's the end of the ruling class. I don't care what country it's in. And so even the process of we're going to legislatively do it, even though on a practical sort of day-to-day thing, oh, good, they're whipping us less often. Yeah, but you're still implying it's up to them how often to whip us. Which is not a good thing to reinforce. Like, it's hard enough to get people out of the mindset that the government gets to decide how hard to whip us. They get to choose tax rates. Oh, are the taxes going to go up or down? Like, oh, gee, you mean somebody else decides how much of what you earn you get to keep? You don't see something fundamentally screwed up about that? Because if you do, you stop bickering over what the rates of extortion should be, and you oppose extortion. And if he all the way opposed extortion, and maybe he does, maybe there's people in the comment section who will go, yeah, I've actually been paying attention, and here's what he says. Cool. That would be fun to learn. But even doing the legislative thing at all, instead of just saying, just stop giving these clowns your money, is still like giving apparent legitimacy to the legislative process, which is the opposite of like being the slave of a nicer master is the opposite of being a free human being. It's a digital choice. Even if on a practical level, it's more pleasant.
Do you think that the Trump voting libertarians are culpable for Trump's actions for the next 4 years?
Here's the thing. So you use the gun store analogy, which is good. If somebody came in and said, "Hi, I want to buy a gun," you sell it and they go kill some people, you're not to blame. Totally agree. If they come and say, "Hi, I need a gun because I need to go murder a few innocent people," if you sell that guy a gun, well, it's a lot more likely I would at least partly blame you for the outcome because you freaking knew he was going to do that. He told you he was going to do that.
Look, I was playing devil's advocate at the time. I had to leave that part out or the argument wouldn't have worked. So I knew what I was doing. I was playing the character, okay? Somebody please give me some acting credit around here.
I was impressed you lived that long without passing out or throwing up or something. But there are different kinds of libertarians. There's some who is like, well, I'm going to vote for him because I hope on a practical level it's less horrible, but I still advocate all the way self-ownership and no taxes and no this and no that and the other thing. Then there are people who are like, well, if we're going to have a ruling class, I'm going to vote for it to have coercive border controls and maybe a this and maybe a that. Just a little bit of authoritarian violence because it's necessary because this is an emergency. And as long as that authoritarian evil of the welfare state is happening, I want this authoritarian evil. So there's the ones who claim to be libertarian and who voted specifically to have authoritarian violence. And Dave Smith is one of them because he advocates widespread violent aggression against innocent people in the form of border controls, which for those who care about things aren't even constitutional. Nothing in the Constitution that says the feds are allowed to do that. Constitution is bullshit anyway, but for those who care, nothing in there about that.
Have we done a video on that? Because that is a whole thing that we can get into.
I don't
Not
think
now,
so.
maybe another time. Maybe we need to.
I think we got enough on our plate at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Smith is absolutely at least partly culpable for some of the nasty violence because he wanted that and said so. He wanted border controls. Now, there's an extra added dimension of, well, I just wanted them like keeping bad people out. I didn't want them like funding human trafficking, as automatically happens as soon as you create a black market. Like a lot of the human trafficking is a direct result of border controls, just like the Mexican drug cartels exist because of the war on drugs. You created a huge economic incentive for people to smuggle people over a border. You don't have to smuggle people over a border if they can just walk across the border. But the moment you add authoritarian violence, then you get trafficking and you get the coyotes smuggling, not actual coyotes, people smuggling people up from Mexico and stuff like that. So, and I just did a thing about this. I just did a video about like, how long can you claim ignorance and go, well, I didn't want this. And it's a tough question. I didn't even have a clear answer because if somebody says, well, I want border controls because scary, horrible foreigners and stuff. And then the force that you condoned is used in really nasty ways, including to innocent people, which it always will be. Like, how much culpability does the person deserve? Well, I didn't want that to happen. Yeah, but you empowered the thing that you should have had every reason to know was going to do that. It's like to be, I want police to have immunity and them to have military hardware and all this. Oh, gee, they're abusing people. Well, I didn't want that. You can't blame me. I just did a video about that too. The whole a number of conservative talk show hosts being swatted, where somebody calls in a number and says something bad's happening there, and a SWAT team shows up and their dogs get shot, and sometimes they get shot. And I had to make a video about because that's happened to a number of conservatives recently, and said, first of all, it's totally evil for anybody to do that because they're trying to make a bunch of armed psychos show up at your house in combat mentality mode. But why does that work? Why can somebody call a number and make a SWAT team show up at the front of your house with like no basis for a warrant, no probable cause? Why does that happen? Oh, because of the dumb shit inside the house who's a conservative who voted to have a militarized police. And they're too stupid to notice this only worked because of what you put in place. And of course, they're all going to say, well, I didn't want it used like this. Okay, but at some point, you have to use your brain and think ahead and go, if we give a huge amount of authoritarian power to people, might somebody abuse it? I don't think it's asking too much to have people think that much. And if it's not asking too much that they think that far ahead, then yeah, they bear part of the culpability of the harm done by what they should have known would happen. There's a bunch of principles in the law that actually make sense, and they like predate this country. They go way back into British law, including due process and burden of proof and things like that. In a lot of laws, you'll see knew was going to happen or had reason to know was going to happen. Like you did something that anybody with a brain should have known that's going to cause this bad thing to happen, which means you're liable or you're culpable, whether it's civil or criminal or anything else. Like how much of a dumbass did you have to be to do that and not know that it was going to result in that bad thing happening to that other person? So that's been a principle in like British law and common law going back just forever. You should have known better principle. It's not the technical term for it. I don't know what the technical term is. And so that sort of applies here. If people are like, well, I cheered for authoritarian violence, but I didn't want bad things to happen. It's like at a certain person, people are to blame for stuff they should have known was going to happen as a direct result of stuff they specifically advocated, whether it's border controls or the war on drugs or the, whatever brand of authoritarian crap they fell for.
So it sounds like we mostly agree, but I tried to make I wrote an article. I wrote words instead of make videos. It was weird for me, but I did it.
Okay.
And I think it turned out okay, but I tried to make like the moral argument against voting, and I tried to make it as legitimate as I possibly could. So let me run it by you and just see if you see any issues with it or if you generally agree, right? So premise one was that, and I think most people agree on this, people that assist other people in criminal activities are partially or equally culpable for the results of the group's actions. So like if a dude disables a bank security system for a group of bank robbers or serves as the getaway driver, that person is at least partially culpable for the bank robbing theft crime as like a co-conspirator. They helped make it happen. They provided means, resources, information, whatever. So I think most, and that's like normal, that's the justice system as we understand it too. So like, I don't think this is controversial. Then my premise two is that voting for a candidate has an effect of assisting them in winning office and gaining potentially coercive power over other people. In short, I just mean that voting is not ineffectual. Like some people make the argument, like your vote actually doesn't do anything. It's such a small number in a sea of numbers that it doesn't actually have any agency or any actual effect on the outcome. And there's two answers to that. Either it does or it doesn't. If it has an effect, then it has an effect. And if it has no effect, then this argument doesn't apply. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If voting actually has no effect on anything, number one, you wouldn't vote because that would kind of be insane. If you really thought that it had no effect, you wouldn't do it. You would do literally anything else. So I really think that this argument maybe only applies for people that vote because they think it does something.
But that's, I would do a very brief pause. Attempted murder is also a crime.
I was going to get there.
Tried to do something that you thought was going to do that. The fact that it didn't doesn't mean you're not culpable.
Okay. So we're still on the same page. Okay. So
just throwing that. Okay.
Premise one, co-conspirators to crimes are equally or, at least partially culpable for the effects of the group's actions. Premise two, voting has an effect of actually assisting somebody in gaining that coercive power. So the conclusion is really simple. If the supported candidate is subsequently elected, and to your point, even if they aren't elected, but you still tried to give them power, and those powers and resources are then used to create innocent victims or to coerce people, then the people that voted for the candidate is at least partially culpable for the crimes as a co-conspirator. That's the argument in a nutshell. And the response I got to that was like, well, Lysander Spooner disagrees, and they give the Lysander Spooner vote bullet argument, right? So maybe we could briefly go into that.
Dead guy.
Huh? No, Spooner's kind of
dead guy. Like
Spooner's kind of a badass. Let's give him his due. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
He's do you maybe want to like run through the vote bullet argument for everybody?
I was going to throw in a thing you said
Go
that
ahead.
complicates what you said. Like what you said is totally true, but a thing that complicates it and a thing that statists use to try to get out of it, but doesn't really work if you look closely, is, well, I didn't want him to do that thing. Like I voted for him because he said he was going to do no more wars, and now he's like posting online videos of murdering a bunch of people standing in a circle in Yemen. I didn't want that. And so they say, I'm not to blame for that. I didn't want that. That's not what I voted for him to do. It was not what I wanted. Here's the reason that's a bullshit excuse. They want it to be equivalent to, well, I paid some guy to mow my neighbor's lawn and he went in and murdered my neighbor. Well, I paid you to mow the lawn. I didn't pay you to murder my neighbor. What the hell? You can't blame me because I paid you to mow the lawn. Like, I'm not to blame for the fact that he murdered the neighbor. Like, that isn't anything. But that's not the equivalent of voting for somebody for office. Voting for somebody office is the equivalent of, hi, random person, I'm giving you the keys to my neighbor's house. I hope you'll use them to do good things. My neighbor didn't give me permission to do that. I'm just helping you break into his house without his consent. But I hope you're going to do good things when you do that. Oh, you did bad things? Well, don't blame me. I wanted him to do good things. Yeah, but you put him in the position of power knowing you were going to give him the ability and societal permission to do bad things. You handed the ring of power to somebody who turned out to be a psycho. And you can't, the argument of, well, I only wanted him to do these good things. Well, do you have the ring of power? No. Did you give it to him? Yeah. So is it your choice what he's going to do with it anymore? No, but I can sort of hope. Yeah, but you made it be his choice what he would do with the power. You helped make that happen. The fact that he then did something, hey, not that, I didn't want you to, well, it's a little late now, dumbass. You gave him the power. He doesn't need your permission anymore. He doesn't need your consent. You already gave him the vote. You put him in a position where he can do that harm. So I think that even the people saying, well, I didn't want him to do this, even that's a bullshit excuse. Because you didn't just say, I'm going to vote for him to stop wars. You said, I'm going to put him into power because he's told me he was going to not do wars anymore.
Well, you're actually making the hardest form of the case. A much more like realistic version of the case is every example of a presidential election that we have, the person that you're giving the keys to your neighbor's house to has a history of robbing people's houses, is saying on the campaign trail up to your front door that he intends to rob people's houses. And then you hand him the keys and be like, oops, did he rob my neighbor's houses? I didn't want him to do that. Like, dude, Trump killed between look, I actually looked up some statistics because I wanted to be able to know numbers, actual murders, right? Trump's first term, between 2,000 and 3,000 innocent people, mostly women and children. And these numbers only come from drone bombing specifically, not in other ways or side effects or, tertiary killings of other policy actions. Specifically, drone bombings only. Trump's first 4 years, between 2,000 and 3,000, as high as 11,000 if you listen to some people, and as low as 1,000 if you only listen to the government's actual report of the number of innocent people it admits to murdering, right? So let's just say 2,000. That's really fair, and it's way on the low end. They admit to murdering. Trump, you can say as a factual statement, Trump is a known mass admitted murderer. Why would you ever put that ring of power back on his hand? Even if he was promising that, hey guys, I've turned over a new leaf. I'm an ANCAP now, non-aggression principle all the way. I'm going to end government. Why would you trust a guy that murdered 2,000 to 3,000 people to go and do that for you? That's insane. So I'm just, my point was that like, that's the practical case. It's much easier to make than, you just innocently lending keys to your neighbor's house. You're lending it to a robber, a known robber.
Past history of very, very bad things. But that brings it back to the comparison game. And it's so sad to watch people fall for that. Like, well, the ruling class told us we had to either be oppressed by this corrupt piece of crap or that corrupt piece of crap. So those were our choices. It's like, since when do you let the worst people in the world tell you what your choices are? Like, what? But so many people talk that way. Well, it was either Biden or Trump, or it was either Kamala or Trump, or not obeying maybe and not playing that stupid game. But the fact that that's all it took is, it's kind. And again, I expect normal people to fall for this. It's worked on lots of people for a really long time. But especially people who have seen the Jones Plantation who turn around and vote for Trump. I'm like, come on, I literally showed you exactly what they do behind the scenes. Literally, they want to rob you and dominate you. They don't want you rising up. So they put on a puppet show and go, choose one of these. So you feel all empowered and you think it was your choice. And you're like, hey, including people go, I like that movie. Yeah, that's just what they're doing. I'm going to vote Trump this time.
Look at how many Jones bucks they gave me.
All these Jones Plantation credits. I'm just rolling in it. But the when you can, what's the is it the Overton window? Like, here's the range of discussion that we're allowed to have.
Yes.
Like it's the Overton window is so skinny you can't even fit a person through it anymore. It's either a corrupt crook or a corrupt crook that's almost exactly the same. Don't think of anything outside of that. And if somebody says, we should probably think of something outside of that, make fun of them and call them purists and, it's ridiculous. Obviously, it has to be one of these crooks. And just, if you ask them why, they literally don't understand the question. Why are those our two choices? Well, that's the system we have. Well, that's like saying, well, what is. Okay, why are these two choices? Why would you choose one of these? And years ago, Amanda and I made a flippant video about two guys show up at the front door and one's going to steal the car and one's going to steal her purse. But she's the one, I played both candidates, but she gets to choose which it is. So she's really in charge and she's consenting to the whole thing because she gets a choice between having this stolen or that stolen. And literally nobody would fall for it in that setting. They'd go, get out of here before I shoot you. But because it's the way things are, like that's the system we have, which doesn't mean anything. It just means that's what you expect because it's what you've seen before. That's not an argument. It's like, why do you keep dropping an anvil on your foot every Thursday? Well, that's the way things are. That's not the way things are if you stop doing that. That's not an excuse. Why are you doing that dumb thing? Because we've always done this dumb thing. Well, maybe don't. But the fact that they can be tricked into viewing it as choosing one of these two things is the entire realm of choices. It's just so weird to watch. I mean, it's, again, people have never thought about anything and are thoroughly indoctrinated. Of course it works on them. But watching libertarians fall back into the game, it's like, you know the magician, you know the trick he's doing, you know how he does it. And then he did it and you fell for it. Already knowing how he does it.
I'm also trying to understand the phenomenon that it's mostly the prominent libertarians that fall for this. It's so rarely the little guys, like, I guess us, low subscriber count relatively, certainly relative to, like Dave Smith, for example. I think he's 250,000 or more at this point. Like he's got quite a following. He's on Joe Rogan often. Why is it so often the prominent libertarians that are what I have come to call the way station libertarians? I got that term from Stefan Kinsella, actually. Way station meaning they're here for a little while, but then they, catch the pragmatic virus and start compromising their principles. Why do you think that is?
Fair weather freedom fighters. I think, once again, I think a lot of this just comes back to human nature. If you have a huge audience and you have a reputation and you have an income and you have like a bunch of money coming in, almost everybody is going to start like glancing over that and have it affect what they say and what they do out loud. That's human nature. That's programmed into us. Like, it benefits me to do A, I should probably lean in the direction of doing A. And it takes an extra level of principles and stubbornness and obnoxiousness and antisocial and a few other traits to go, everybody wants me to do this. They offer me money to do that. Lots of people will cheer if I do that, and they're all wrong, so fuck you. I think there really is a personality thing involved that shouldn't have anything to do with it. But as soon as somebody has something to lose, they seem more likely to sell out. And that's not to say they're like bought and sold by some. I mean, I'm sure that happens. Somebody comes along and say, hey, I'll give you this pile of money if you stop talking about that and start. I'm not even accusing them of that. Like, that happens to some people. But just the thing of, once again, it's the weird human psychology. If you start to get the approval of a bunch of people, like, yeah, and I've seen this, like, I've been doing this since nobody I knew believed this. So I was just talking to a brick wall. Nobody was like, yeah, Larken, I love what you say. Nobody was saying that for years. It's like, here's what I believe. Fuck the rest. Nobody was saying that. So I had lots of practice having zero approval. At the same time, I like it when people go, oh, I really like the way you explain things, and I love your book, and I like the movie, and blah, blah. Like, who doesn't like that? Who, like, works really hard on a project and wants nobody to appreciate it? Just so automatically there's a built-in thing. Oh, cool. I like this appreciation. I like this attention. I like making money, which that part I haven't gotten around to yet. But the positive reinforcement.
That's because this isn't how you do it. You have to do other things. That's what I've come to the conclusion. Yeah.
But the positive reinforcements that human beings just naturally want, when they suddenly get huge and they get a pretty big audience. I mean, this is true just of people in Hollywood too. Like, there are pretty many people in Hollywood who went in and probably weren't nearly as liberal as what they sound. And they're like, yeah, but look at my cushy job. Look at all the money I make just pretending to be somebody else. I'm not going to stand up and go, fuck all of you. Taxation is theft. Like, maybe I'll quietly think that and say it to a few of my friends. But I know these people aren't going to respond well, and I have plenty to lose. So maybe I'll just sort of keep that to myself. And then you get these influences that mostly matter on people who have something to lose. Meanwhile, some, random construction guy can say, fuck the government. It's just like, as long as the boss either agrees or doesn't hear you say it, nobody cares. So there's no pressure. So when there's sort of but on top of that, the people who aren't antisocial, weird introverts like me, I won't speak for you, you can speak for yourself. They like approval and they like getting along with people, and they don't like confrontation. And in fact, I have to give you credit. You're so freaking nice to people to degrees that I wouldn't nearly be. But what I've never seen you do is pretend you believe something that you don't really. Like, you'll stick to your principles. You'll try to be nice and gentle because you want other people to, like, understand and get along and hopefully even agree. And so you do an awesome job, but it's really freaking rare. I'm going to see if I can make you blush. It's really freaking rare, the combination you have of sticking to your freaking principles, but also being, like, really nice to people. Much nicer than I am most of the time.
Bro, I'm losing that ability on text, like Twitter and that stuff. I've just started becoming a complete dick, and it's not good. But man, social media is poison. If social media is just poison for any kind of good conversation, I try and get people to voice or video. That's where real chats happen. But thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it.
But that same phenomenon is going to apply to anybody who has a big audience, and somebody comes along and says, I really like what you have to say about this. I mean, I sort of think, blah, blah. Like, here we are in front of a bunch of people having big fun time, all these pro-freedom people at this event. But I sort of think we need some government for, like, border controls. It's like, oh, we're all getting along and having fun. And most people don't want to say, well, you're full of shit. That's immoral status bullshit. And like, oh, thanks for making it all uncomfortable. And some people will voice this directly. Well, let's not have infighting. Well, infighting in what? Do you mean a big group of people and most of them are statists? Because, let's have infighting. If some people still advocate the enslavement of mankind, I'm going to fight with them, even if just verbally. But the idea of, no, we need more influence, so let's get along with the people who only want a little bit of slavery, a little bit of extortion, and like that's, and you see so much of that in politics, like the Libertarian Party, where they haven't had an actually libertarian candidate for a long ass time. But that's a human psychology thing, and people wanting approval and also just wanting like support, financial support, moral support, just views, clicks, subscribers. And it's just a human nature thing that most people really don't want to, every pro-freedom person knows that picture of the huge crowd of people all doing the Heil Hitler salute and the one guy standing like that. Everybody wants to glorify that guy. Almost nobody wants to be him.
Can everybody clip that just there, Rick? We need to save that clip of Larken doing that. All right. I'm kidding. Don't do that. All right.
Because guy at that time in that crowd, he didn't have a bunch of people going, yeah, go you. He was like, fuck. I'm surrounded by all these frickin' people. Like, this might be dangerous for me to not hold my stinking hand up to that power happy dipshit. Or he might have just been some guy not paying attention to what was happening. But it's easy to be principled when you have a bunch of people going rah, rah, rah for you to be principled.
Yes.
But if that crowd goes, can we move a little bit over this way? It's mostly the anti-social, stubborn troublemakers who are the ones who will go, no, fuck you. If my whole crowd moves that way, if you convince me to change my mind, I'll go wherever. But I'm not going to follow the crowd. It was fun having you for allies, but the moment you betray the principle, fuck you. You don't come before a principle. Principles come first. That's why they're called principles.
And a lot of this it's easy to say until you're challenged. It's like you said, it's when I'm talking to Larken on Anarchast, it's super easy to be like, yeah, don't do things that help bad people like the government get more power over us. It's great. It's easy to say. We all agree. I'm sure everybody in the comments is going to be thumbs up. Yeah, good job, Patrick. You said the thing. But you got into the real world, and I remember the guy that started Disenthralled, my old YouTube channel, with me. We were at a business meeting at a sports game one time, and not a sports game. It was I'm not into sports balling, so I'm really bad at what it's called. It's like where they drive the four wheelers over dirt. Anyway, whatever.
Truck rally,
power sports rally, whatever it's called.
That thing.
And, we're surrounded by the wealthy people, who were attempting to woo into a business deal for a software project that we're making. And, what happens at the start of every major sporting event, right? There's this, there's this massive flaggetry explosion where everyone stands up and worships and shows solidarity with yes. That's two Zig Hills in one video, Larken. You need to slow it down. You're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, somebody do screen capture of that. Put it on
Ryan and I just stayed seating. Like there's different ways to sort of resist, right? It's kind of like the vegan thing. Like if you don't eat meat at a restaurant, like this, You're out for a meal with your friends and you're a vegan and you could just, quietly not order meat. Or you could loudly not order meat, or you could stand up and stomp out and yell at people and shame them on the way out. Like there's different ways to, enact your principles. And one of the mildest ways imaginable is we just stayed seated during this. And my God, it is really, really off-putting to some people to not join those ceremonies, right?
Yeah.
And, would I have done it again? Yes. Did it endanger our entire financial deal at the time? Yes. Did we get lucky? And I guess, I don't know how many people noticed. Yes. But that keeps happening. I had another, and I don't say this stuff to brag. I need to be careful. I say this to illustrate the effect it can have on your life when you're not amongst people that agree. I was offered a contract to work on a security device. I can't get into specifics. We're talking 9 figures. This would have been a multi-$100 million company if the product was successful. and it involved two pieces of tech that I love. And so I was super excited until I learned that the primary source of income for the company, at least in the first several years of its existence, would have been police agencies. And I said, hey guys, I'm sorry, you're going to have to find somebody else. I'm not going to work on technology that's going to assist the police. If we're only going to sell it to private
Those people
people.
wouldn't do that, Patrick. That's why I'm complimenting you.
I'm not, no.
Do that.
I did not bring it up to brag. I bring it up to point out the differences.
Brag. I'm bragging about you on your behalf. Go ahead.
Stop it. I'm bringing it up to say, like, there are real world costs to holding principles. Principles, by their very nature, deny you the ability to have certain options in certain circumstances. In some people's cases, millions and millions of dollars. An amazing guy I know, Kaysen. He is a wicked great businessman. I think I saw him in the comments earlier even, so I'm bragging on him right now to his face. He's a great businessman, amazing principled guy. He has turned down so much money for the sake of voluntarist principles. It's crazy. But that's what it means. That's what it means.
Yeah, and that's a rarity. And I can vouch for the fact that Kaysen is totally awesome.
Okay, so enough bragging about... That's not what I didn't even mean to go there. Okay, so... vote bullets. Lysander, I want to close with this. We can wrap it up. So Lysander Spooner makes the case that his defense of culpability for any wrongdoing for voting for candidates is that voting is a self-defensive act. Other people are firing vote bullets at you. They're using laws and government and elections to control you and to coerce you. They're shooting at you with vote bullets. And so, of course, as a self-defensive measure, you're well within your rights to fire your vote bullets back at them. That's sort of Lysander Spooner's vote bullet argument. Do you have anything you want to say about that before I say, kind of why I think this is maybe the one place Lysander Spooner is really wrong?
Yeah, he's totally wrong. I'll let you bash.
Okay, and then you can tag team. All right, so I think votes are much more akin to grenades. So when somebody lobs a vote at you to coerce you and control you, it's not specifically aimed at you. It's aimed at you and everyone around you, everyone in the vicinity or area or the continental U.S. in a lot of cases, or even the world in the case of U.S. elections, right? And literally everyone gets hit by this vote bomb in some cases, very actual, real bombs.
Literally, yeah.
And so to say that, you're justified in vote grenading back, I think you have a valid argument only in a case where you can somehow guarantee that your vote is only going to affect the specific individuals firing vote bullets at you. But that's not how voting works. Voting doesn't have a mechanism by which you can vote to counter coerce only the people coercing you. That's just not how the system works. You're throwing a grenade back, or you're launching a vote bomb back, and that bomb is going to yeah, sure, it's probably going to hit some of the people that voted at you, but it's also going to kill everybody in the building and drop the building on a bunch of children and damage vast swaths of people in the area that could even be on the other side of the world and couldn't even have voted at you if they wanted to, because they're not a voter in the U.S. system. So I just think Spooner just really gets this wrong, and because he's such a prominent guy in libertarian circles, I think he's just misled a lot of people on the voting thing. Voting just doesn't work like bullets.
They ironically do appeal to authority to Lysander Spooner. Well, he said it, so it's right. Yeah, and there's in our legal system, there's a perfect distinction, because the one time I don't make fun of people voting in elections is when they vote against a certain referendum. Like, government needs a certain number of the people to vote for us to raise some stupid tax or do some stupid authoritarian bullshit. And if people go in and go, no stupid new authoritarian bullshit, please, I don't make fun of them for that. But if they go in and go, I'm going to empower this guy to do whatever the hell he wants with the ring of power, because I don't want that guy doing whatever he wants to me with the ring of power. Yeah, then it's the grenade thing. And Lysander is just wrong. You didn't just defend yourself. You aimed the violence at somebody else. And you empowered somebody to use violence that you don't even know what it is ahead of time. You gave him permission to use unknown violence against unknown victims. You can't call that defense. you're not just voting in a referendum against a particular act of government violence. You're just voting for aiming the gun of government violence in a different direction. And that's not okay. And it's not defensive and it's not moral.
Yeah, and you just reminded me. I said that was the last thing, but this is one more thing. This argument that, well, somebody's going to be elected anyway. Somebody's going to be president after the election anyway, no matter what you do. If you don't vote, they're still going to be elected. If you do vote, you might have a chance at slightly influencing towards the one that you would prefer out of the least bad options. This is like it's leaving a very critical individualistic point out. It is what do you want to be responsible for? Do you want to bring Kamala's hell to the world? Do you want to be responsible for that? Do you want to put your name by that and help make that happen? Do you want to help Trump gain power, which he's then definitely going to use to kill some innocent people if he hasn't already just in this term? Do you want your name behind that, or would you prefer your name not be behind any murders at all? Like, yeah, right now, somewhere in the world, there's a very wealthy chief technology officer that's probably working on that security project that I turned down. He's probably very wealthy. He's probably very happy with himself. And it's not me. Somebody did, in fact, probably get that contract. I don't actually know what happened, but, you know, we can assume it went through, right? So it happened anyway. The police are getting the security product that I was potentially working on, or that I was offered to work on. That happened anyway. Sure. And somebody got that money. Should it have might as well been me? No. I, Patrick Smith, will not have my name on evil. And that's the point I think a lot of people making these voting arguments miss, is like, do you know, Matthew Sands, I see your name in the comments. I'm not calling you out. I'm just the first name I saw. Do you want your name on all the evil Trump is about to do over the next 4 years? You personally, because that's what's happening. Right. This is not a collective amorphous cloud argument about, well, which evil cloud do we kind of want to lean towards? It's like, no. Which specific set of evil do you want your name on? Or would you prefer to not have your name on any evil? Well, I think it's fucking obvious. I don't want Patrick's name next to any evil things.
Yep. And my soundbite version of that is, yeah, one set of crooks is actually both set of crooks, because Democrats and Republicans are both going to be there robbing you. One set of those crooks is going to be robbing you, no matter what the outcome of the election. I'm not going to help either one of them do that. The end.
Yeah.
It's that fucking simple.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, this was fun. I had a good time.
Yeah.
It's the first video I've made in like 6 months. So
yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Larken, thanks for hanging out with me. We should do this more often. And I know it's my fault for not doing it. So anytime you have something you want to talk about, you're welcome to hit me up and we'll get back on here.
We shall do it. Now everybody go vote. Don't forget to vote.
All right. Go check out Larken's actual Twitter account. It's Larken_Rose. That's the correct one, I believe, right?
Yes. And the other one is down. Woot woot.
You got it down? What happened?
Yeah. That maybe we'll have to do a show about that.
Okay. All right.
That's been an interesting ordeal. It may come back. They said for keeping it down, but we'll see. God,
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Opposition.
Right. Okay. You won. All right. Yeah. Larken_Rose on Twitter. Obviously, the Rose channel is your project.
Yep.
I am at Not Governor on Twitter, at Anarcast on Twitter, and you are already on the correct YouTube channel. Good job. So with that, we'll bid you guys adieu. Have a great day. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Anarchy.
It's scary.